Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of Scarlet, Betch. I'm Jason.
And I'm Anthony.
Welcome to our February podcast. This is becoming a monthly affair.
Happy Sequestration Eve!
Well, politics aside, this is not a Diane Reed show, although I would love to be on the Diane Reed show at some point in my life. A whole lot of stuff happened in comic books while we were away. So I think we should first start off with our first segment of the show, our comic pick of the podcast. So, Anthony, what was your comic pick of this podcast?
I'm going with Harbinger.
Harbinger?
Yeah, mostly because it's a very solid comic book, and we're going to talk about all the other awesome ones later. And yeah, if you don't know, Valiant is relaunching all of their awesome comics that they had in the 90s. They were kind of a independent and awesome, kind of a little subversive comic book company in the 90s, and they had this take on the X-Men called Harbinger that was basically the extreme X-Men or not extreme X-Men, the ultimate X-Men of the 90s. And so they're redoing it, and in some ways it is not at all different, and in some ways it's radically different. I was kind of hoping, they would change up some of the races and sexualities of the characters. They have not. Everyone is still white and straight.
But there's a fat girl, so that's kind of progress.
Yeah, but Zephyr was always in it.
Okay.
To be fair, they're not calling Zephyr Zeppelin, so that's nice. That was always a joke in the first one, was that her code name to everyone else was Zeppelin, and then her code name to herself was Zephyr.
That's so sad.
Yeah, but she's saving the day. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think Faith is the best character in that book.
Yeah.
No, Faith and Chris. And that's the nice thing. The lady character.
So speaking of races, I totally thought that Chris was Japanese or something at first, but then I guess she's not. I don't know.
I think of Draculaura as Japanese, so I think it's all in the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it's definitely, I do think they should have mixed it up a little bit, but they did not.
So I actually wanted to hear from you, what is it that you like about Harbinger? Because I've been reading it just to keep abreast. But
right.
I'm just kind of frustrated with it because I feel there's only one character that I actually care about in this
Chris?
Yeah. Pretty much.
She's the one who has gotten the best upgrade, I think.
Yeah.
It's interesting because they switched around. I think they switched around the order basically of a lot of the events. Kind of the story became over time, I believe, a fight between Toyo and I guess they do have a Japanese person in that book, mm-hmm. But he was always Japanese. And the main character boy,
Peter Stanchek.
Yeah, exactly, him. It became definitely a book about their rivalry, and that's kind of how it started now. I thought it had a slow start, mm-hmm. But
it did.
Yeah. And so that was always a count against it, mm-hmm. But it definitely when they brought in Chris, really, it took off.
Well, my thing was that just I mean, Peter basically rapes Chris, kind of.
Yep.
And it's just
What I like about this version is that it's not ambiguous whether he made her fall in love with him. Uh-huh. And in the first series it was left ambiguous, and this time they're just making her hard ass about it.
Yeah.
And like I said, she is the breakaway character of this reboot, mm-hmm. I think. And I do think that they've kind of recognized Zephyr more prominently as the heart of the team. And so I do really enjoy those things. I thought it was an interesting take on Torque because I thought he was super boring before, and now he's a little interesting. Mm-hmm. I had really hoped that Flamingo would keep her charred shell or continue to have it.
Ugly and not
Exactly, and that would be a great take on, mm-hmm. especially because I feel like it might be a comment on what's happened to Solstice.
Yeah.
And
mm-hmm.
and just kind of, I thought it would be awesome. but they did not do that. So that's been the thing about Harbinger, is that in equal parts it's been awesome and disappointing. But it's still my pick of the week because I have loved Harbinger ever since my friend said, "Hey, I have this comic book series that you might like. It's from this old comic book company called Valiant." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I love it.
I really just want to know where Valiant got like the capital to like just like start up again after all these years, you know?
People have written stories about that. You can Google it.
I will. But I guess we can transition to my pick of the week. So this is kind of the prerequisite plug for Young Avengers 1 and 2, which came out since our last podcast. Yeah, so we finally get to see Kieran Gillian's take on the Young Avengers, and we've talked at length before, it came out, how excited we were, and I'm very happy to report that our hopes were not in vain. I think that the Young Avengers have translated beautifully into this kind of new, more mature, more rated R PG-13 kind of version of the Young Avengers, which I'm really excited about. I think the things that I love about this Young Avengers is that I love that it's kind of like right off the bat, it's kind of a more sensual, sexual book, which I think is great. Because Alan Heinberg was like oddly chaste about like all of his characters. They were like super tweeny, and like they could, like the furthest they could get was like look longingly into each other's eyes, or maybe once in the blue moon we get to see them in pajamas. So I like that.
But do you think that kind of soap operatic angst-ridden take is what has made so many of those characters fan favorites?
Well, so I do think that in that Hulkling and oh, what's that?
Sorry, that's my ringtone.
I think that Hulkling and Wiccan's the pace of their relationship was excessively slow, and I think a lot of that was, I'm not sure how much of that was pressure from Marvel or kind of Alan Heinberg's kind of like own kind of like self-editing, like kind of not wanting to push the envelope too much because he wants to continue to write his book.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was kind of overly paced out. In general, I really dislike the whole like one girl, two guy love triangle trope. So the whole like love triangle between Speed and Kate and Elijah was kind of wore me out a little bit. Okay. Especially because I never really got the Kate and Speed thing at all.
No, that's true. Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
Yeah. And I'm actually, I kind of feel bad about this, but I'm kind of like gleefully happy about like Speed's very convenient exit from the book with this volume 2, because I never really liked his character.
He suffers from the same He suffers from the same flaws as his uncle, which is the speedsters are not generally good characters.
Yeah. The thing about Speed was like so kind of disappointing was that like he starts off as this kind of like bad boy character, and they could have totally gone something like much like interesting and layered and dark, but then he just kind of became this like snarky little bitch, and I got disinterested.
True, very true. That's a good point. Yeah, they totally should have played him up as the villain. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been getting back into the soap opera land and noticing how much it is exactly like comic books, and that's what they really need to do. You make someone who has impulse speed be impulsive, and then you have a great good guy villain.
Mm-hmm. I also love the new additions to the team. Miss America, who we got to see in Vengeance, is